Are you a business owner or entrepreneur who's had great success in the business world, and now you want to launch a speaking career to share your message with the world? If that's you, then listen up. 25-year speaking industry veteran Bret Ridgway has released his latest special report, 3 key things entrepreneurs must master to build a profitable speaking business. To pick up your copy, go to bretridgway.com/freebie. Speaking business from speaking industry pros. Each week, we interview a great guest who will share his or her speaking journey, identify what their keys to success have been, and highlight some critical mistakes they've made along the way that you'll want to avoid. Be sure to visit our website at spotlightonspeaking.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, sit back, tune in, and get ready to meet this week's guest.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Spotlight on Speaking show. And in fact, this is episode number 1 of a special series that I'm doing with my good friend Judy Baker here about being podcast ready. And this can apply to authors, speakers, anybody that thinks being on podcast, which is something that you should be doing, is a way to build your brand awareness and all that. So Judy's going to join me for this special series. We don't know exactly how many episodes it's going to be, but we're going to focus in this particular series about, first of all, how to be most attractive to podcast hosts. And there are a number of things that come into play here, and this will probably take us 2 or 3 episodes to cover everything, but we're going to keep it in nice bite-sized chunks, no more than 15 or 20 minutes per episode. And then we'll be sharing the screen and showing you some things that we think will help you out. But again, part number 1 will be how to be attractive to podcast hosts. Then we're going to move on into the criteria that you need to determine or establish for yourself to determine if a particular podcast is right for you. And we'll be sharing with you some particular resources and other things that can help you out, because related to that is we're going to show you or tell you how you can get a hold of a special list that we've created on where you can find podcasts to be a guest on. But it's important to establish your criteria, obviously, to determine if a particular podcast is appropriate for you. And then finally, we'll conclude the series by talking about how you can best leverage the podcast appearances that you do. And believe me, there are a number of things that you can do that will make you even more attractive to podcast hosts, but also really get the bang for your buck, get your money's worth on the time that you've invested into being a guest on podcast. So first of all, Judy Baker, welcome aboard for this special series. Could be 3, could be 4, could be 5. We'll find out how many episodes we'll go on this. But any words of wisdom, Judy, before we start to rock and to roll here?
Well, when I think about being a podcast guest, I think about the first time I ever was a podcast guest, and it was kind of impromptu. But over those years, I mean, that was probably 20 years ago, that podcasting has exploded, and the value of showing up and sharing your wisdom has gotten even more important and more valuable. And as you and I both know, you need to know yourself first and foremost before you start your shopping trip. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. So are we ready to rock into that?
Yeah, let's dive right into that, Judy, because that's a fantastic place to start, I think.
Okay. Well, when we were talking earlier, I came up with this way that I think is going to help people picture what it's like. If you are a cook and you are going to the grocery store to buy ingredients, but you don't know what you're cooking, that makes it pretty hard, don't you think? What if you've got a recipe and that recipe gives you a list of what you need and you know what you're trying to create? Now, as a podcast guest, you're the recipe and the ingredient. And let me explain a little bit more about that. You need to know who you are, what value you bring to the table, and who you are serving. So if I created a dish and you've got an allergy to the ingredients in that dish, that's not going to work. Or maybe you're a vegan and I just created something that's got a ton of critters in it, buffalo and chicken and pork and you name it, you're not eating that. So if you know who you are and you know who you're serving, you're going to do a whole lot better. And you need to know that first. You need to know yourself best first so that you know who you're going to connect with and why you have something to offer to their audience and you're offering something to your audience that they want to eat up. Now, Bret, you've got something that you have done and I've done too, and it's called a media one sheet. And the information on that media sheet has a short biography of you. It has some of your best topics, the things that you are a whiz at sharing. And it may also include places where you have already spoken. And would this be a good time for me to show what that looks like?
Yeah, we can certainly do that. So I think it's important to recognize Judy's first point here about being clear as to who you are is first and foremost before you begin this whole journey of being a podcast guest, because there are literally thousands and thousands and thousands of podcasts out there. And you got to be sure that you're reaching the right audience with your particular message. And so if you're not clear as to who you are, how are you going to know? So get very clear on who you serve before you get to that next step. And of course, as podcast hosts are looking for potential guests, you want to be able to provide them with materials in some format, preferably online, but also something that could be sent or given to somebody. And in our opinion, the first thing that falls on this list is having a fantastic media one sheet. So yeah, you just go ahead and pull them up and show them some examples of media one sheets so they can get
Okay.
an idea of what type of information should be on there. So you're familiar with Deborah. I'm not. So why don't you
Okay.
tell us what we have here?
I will. My friend Deborah Eckerling is a podcast host, guest, author, and speaker. And her layout, which is something all of you want to have, is a good picture of yourself. You want to have your name clear and easy to read, and then tell people about you. And this version of her one sheet, right out of the gate, she's telling you she's all of these things. Now, in the old days, when we used to have printed newspapers, the concept is you want to have your most important information first, and then it's a pyramid. So, if people only read the headlines, that's great. But if they want to dive deeper, you're going to give them more information. So she gives her bio here. Then she has what she talks about. Because she's an author, she has a picture of her book right there on her one sheet. She also has her logo right first and foremost. And then this is something a lot of people forget. You need to have your contact information right there so people know where to find you, how to get in touch with you, where they can see more about you. And then she has logos showing different places where she has been a speaker. Super simple. And now I'm going to show you, let me show you Bret's. Bret, do you want to talk about yours? Because I like your layout as well. It's also super clear, but you can see They're not identical.
No, and I think it's important to recognize that you need to be you, so to speak. And in my opinion, honestly, Judy, is that the bio and the number of topic listed on Deborah's one sheet actually is a little bit much. In my opinion, is you need to, have a brief bio that's no more than 3 or 4 sentences. Your
Correct.
topics should be no more than 3 to 5 topics you talk on. You don't want to offer up 8 or 10 or 12 topics because in the world of online marketing, a confused mind doesn't buy. So if there
Right.
is confusion about where you really stand, what your mission is, who you're really, who your target audience is, then the potential host is like, well, are they this? Are they that? Are they that? I mean, what are they really? So you want to be clear and
Mhm.
limit the number of topics you have. Certainly the contact information under reach me on this particular document
Oh,
right there,
easy.
and you need to have multiple methods certainly that people can get a hold of you.
Hmm.
So don't be afraid to list a phone number. It could be a Google phone number or whatever, but you need to have
Right.
a way that people can easily reach you. You need to definitely have links to your social media profiles on there so that they can come and check you out more if they so wish. Then in my particular case, I chose to, list some of my accomplishments along the way in terms of, establishing some credibility. And then I
Hmm.
listed some featured events that I have spoken at previously. So again, a credibility building thing. Now, other things that people might include on on a one sheet, such as this, that I don't have particularly here, is testimonials. So if a podcast host has made some wonderful comments about you, and then you can summarize it in a sentence or two or whatever and fit it into your one sheet, that's fine. I typically recommend one sheet, but I have seen media sheets that went a couple pages or whatever, but you can't get carried away because if you just throw more and more at them, then they're less likely to read it. And it needs to be something that is in bite-sized chunks, easily consumable, and they can find the information that they need quickly.
I agree with you. And you may see in mine, it's kind of a hybrid between those two different versions where I've got my bio right up on the top with a portrait of myself. And then I've got my speaking topics. Now, I'm going to say something else. Your media sheet is not a one and done. You're going to keep changing it as you go along. And I already know that I've got some different titles for my talks that I will be updating this. But this was a point in time, and this is what I had to say. Now, I included references and testimonials from some of my coaching clients, and we talked about the accomplishments I had there. Then I've got a more complete bio here. So this is more of my mission statement, what I stand for, what you're going to get when you meet me. And then over here, I'm talking about my personal journey. And down on the bottom part of this one, I've got, again, I'm using logos and images from different places I've spoken. And these are all podcasts I've been on. And I think you're going to see one that you might be familiar with, the Spotlight on Speaking show. I have that right there because I feel that's important. And it is a good opportunity to get people to go, oh, you've been on all of these shows? Wow. I think I would be safe having you as a guest. The other thing, I've got my contact information right here, and that can be updated. But I really like what Bret did by including his social media links. That is excellent because as a guest, one of the things that hosts are looking for, are you going to help build their audience? And if you're active on social media, and of course, every time you're on a show, you're going to do something, which we're going to talk about in one of the future shows, you're going to be continuing to encourage people, to help them see the value in what you do, and to get them to go over and listen to those shows. So I think this gives you a kind of a quick tour of what a media one sheet is. And I'll tell you something that I didn't know when I started. I'm gonna stop the share on this. I didn't understand the difference between a media sheet and a speaker sheet, which aren't exactly the same thing. So when I was trying to, get booked to do workshops for other places, that's not the same as being a guest on a podcast. So there are some nuances, there are some differences, but I do agree with Bret. Keep it to one page. You can link back, and you should be telling people to come visit you on your website, on your social pages. That's where you can have all this other stuff. But the one sheet is a snapshot in time. So keep it clean, keep it simple. But if you do have huge numbers of social proof, if you've got let's say if you've got numbers in the thousands, tens of thousands, yeah, you want to feature that on your one sheet.
Well, I think it's also important to recognize Judy. If you notice on Judy's one, she had a fantastic, beautiful picture of herself. And you want to make sure that the picture you put on your one sheet is a current picture. I mean, nothing is more disconcerting than, you have an author that you like and you look at their book and they have a picture on it, then you meet them at an event and it looks nothing like the person pictured on the book. So, invest some in getting decent, high resolution headshots done so that you are current with your one sheet and any information that you're putting out there. Now, Judy, you were mentioning when you talked about your speaker one sheet and we looked at that on the bottom you had logos of some of the previous podcasts that you'd been on. Well, obviously, on a media one sheet or a speaker one sheet, if you're going to have something like that, you have limited space. You can't list everything that you have. So I highly encourage you to make sure that you also have on your website a particular page that will let a potential host see all the appearances you've done. And I'm going to bring up my website just to show you an example of this so you can see what we're talking about. So let me make sure I am sharing my screen appropriately.
Okay, almost. We're still front and center.
I'm getting there. All right, I'm getting there.
I know. And
All right.
that's the
So
other thing. You have to be patient when you're doing virtual connections.
certainly. So that should show up now, Judy. Verify that for me, please.
Oh, honey, you know what? Your sound just went away again.
So it's when I go to my website, it's causing the issue.
Yeah.
So can you maybe pull up this page in your
Yeah, hold on.
computer?
Let me get it. Let me get it up. And then, yeah, I don't know. It was really weird. That is exactly when it went kaflooey.
Yeah, so that's what where it went before. So
Yeah.
so trying to bring up a site in Zoom is creating the issue for whatever reason. So
Yeah. We will. Oh. I want to scream. Come on. Why are you not going there? Oh, I know why. Because I can't spell.
you spelled my name wrong.
I did. Well, it's because you're very economical.
I am. No
Yeah.
wasted letters.
Yeah, right. And I put in the extra. I put in an E. Oh, come on. Come on. Refresh. Ah ha ha. All right. So I am going to your previous speaking gigs.
Yeah, that's where you'll be going once I give you the cue.
Okay, let me get it. Let me get it open. Mine's going a little bit glacial. Oh, good. I've got it now. All right. Well, good that we know that. It's
Okay.
strange. Yeah. Okay.
Now, Judy, you mentioned when we were looking at your speaker one sheet that you had basically logos listed on the bottom of your sheet about previous podcasts you'd been on. And I would highly encourage everyone to do that. You have to see on a document like that, whether it's a media one sheet or a speaker sheet or whatever you're going to call it, there's limited space and you can't put everything that you've possibly been where you've appeared. And you want to be able to show a potential host how frequent of a guest you've been, whether it's a summit, a podcast, a live event, whatever it may be. So I highly encourage you to put on your website a page that basically shows all your previous podcast appearances, summit appearances, etc. So Judy, if you would queue up that page on my site so we can show people what we're talking about, that would be great. So here's a page on my site, basically, where I have the logo of all my previous speaking engagements, whether it's a podcast, a summit, a live event, whatever. And if you scroll down there, you'll see that there's dozens and dozens of appearances. So that's something that's going to be very attractive to a potential host. They can see what kinds of shows you've been on, and they know that you are a reputable guest because, well, they wouldn't have been on all these shows if they hadn't done a good job for that particular host. And something that you also want to do, in my opinion, is, Judy, if at the top you would click under speaking on See Bret in Action.
Oh, yes.
So this is basically a subset of all the speaking engagements, but it's where they can link to a direct audio or video of a particular speaking appearance so they can hear you, they can see you, they get a better feel for what you're all about. And so I would highly encourage you to put a page on your site where they can check you out more. Now, you may even want to put up a YouTube channel that just shows your podcast appearances or something. I mean, that's another thing that you can do. But the more places that they can find you and listen to you, the better off you are. So definitely would encourage you to do this. And then one other thing that we haven't talked about, Judy, is I think you definitely should have testimonials on your website. We talked about that in relation to your speaker sheet, and you have a testimonial or two on your speaker sheet, and it's certainly one of the things you can put there. But on your website, if somebody's had some positive comments about you, then put a page on your site where they can, read the testimonials. And this is the format that I always recommend for testimonials. A picture of who the person is, a headline pulled from the main body of their testimonial, then the testimony, then who they are. And I just like to do a nice back and forth layout on my particular site, but you should definitely have some testimonials on your website also. So that's something I wanted to take a look at also in this particular episode. But as we're winding down this first session of being attractive to podcast hosts, Judy, do you have any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
I think what I would love for you to take away is be yourself, be prepared, keep your answers concise, and when you are putting it out that you are available to be a guest, always keep in mind not only who you are and who your audience is, but how you can serve the host and their audience, and make it abundantly clear how you're going to support them.
All right, outstanding. Well, that will conclude our first session of multiple sessions about being attractive to podcast hosts. So we hope you'll join us again next week for session 2. But again, thank you, Judy M. Baker, for being my co-host on this special series. And to all the listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And as always, we wish you the greatest of success in all that you do. And may this year be your greatest year yet. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
This has been the Spotlight on Speaking show with Bret Ridgway. Be sure to join us every week as we interview speaking industry pros and have them share their best tips for building a profitable speaking business. Until next week, thank you for tuning in, and remember to visit our website at spotlightonspeaking.com so you can enjoy even more great episodes like this one. While you're here, be sure to subscribe via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Spotlight on Speaking show. Until then, our sincere best wishes to you for the greatest of success as you work to build your own profitable speaking business.